Hello, and welcome to part 2 of 3D computer animation trains. I'm your host, Mr. Jamie. This is part 2, and so you need to have done part 1 before you can do part 2. Alright, so open your Animator program, then click File and Open, find the train you made in part 1, and select that video and click Open. Then click View and then All. We always want to see all the views. And then click Build, then under that Morph Targets, because today we're going to learn how to do morph. Morph means that something changes from one shape to another shape. So we're going to make our train change shapes to make it kind of cartoony. Then we'll click New under Morph Targets, and we're going to name it Toon Train, T-O-O-N, and click OK. Morphing can be a lot of fun. It's also good for speaking, mouth movements, so it's a useful thing. All right, now we want to click a blank area in front view, just anywhere in front view where there's nothing, because we want to select front view. We want to make sure that's selected. And then click the see-through box. Then activate the points editor that we learned about in part 1. And select or click on the mask select tool. Use your mouse by clicking and dragging to draw a box over the upper points of the train. You can kind of see in the picture where that's at, just above the light. You just want to get the top half of the train selected. And once you have the box over those points, you can let go of the mouse and those points will all be selected. If you didn't get the points you wanted quite right, you click on a blank area to unselect and do it again. Now you'll need your move tool. You're going to drag up with your mouse to stretch the train taller. Don't go too far. We don't want it to get too silly looking, but it will look a little silly. It's going to stretch forward. And then you're going to need to click on the eyeball tool at the top and use your move tool to drag the screen down so that you can see all the train, and you want some extra top above the smokestack for the next step. Then click on the points editor. Click the mask select tool and drag a box with your mouse around the top 4 points of the smokestack, as you see here. Let go and they will select. Get your move tool and drag up to make that smokestack higher, and drag to the left to give it a tilt. You can see how it should look in the far picture there on the right. Now we're going to click Build, Morph Targets again, but this time we've got a lot more in the list, and we're going to choose None from that list. That will turn off our morph. Your train will go back to the way it looked before we move those points. That's how the Morph Editor works. Click the top arrow and click the icon to turn the view back to solid. So when you create a morph, you're creating an additional copy of your object that you can move points around on, and then go back to your original object, and those points will be back where they were. When we've set up the final thing, then the computer will move between the original and the one with the points move, and that's how your morph movement happens. Now we're going to click Mode, because that's all we need to do in object mode. We're going to go to Scene, so Mode, then Scene. And then as we do for everything, click View, then click All, then click Build, then Add Object, and choose Object 01. It's called that because we never named it. If you wanted to name it in object mode, you click Settings, Object, in object mode, and you can name it whatever, and then that name will show up there. And click OK, and your train should appear in normal looking without the morph. And now we're going to learn how to activate the morph and make our train make these cartoony moves. Lots of fun. Alright, so let's get our move tool. and we want to move the train up so the wheels are on the ground. You can look at camera view to see for sure where the ground is, that checkered grid, and make sure the wheels are above it. In front view, the line going across horizontally of the view is where the ground is. So you want it on the ground, obviously. Click Settings, then Scene. We're going to name it Train Tune 1. We will do a different scene in part 3 when we do a figure. At 4, set the length to 150 in that box. Click OK. Now click Settings and then Environment. Click the ... box. You'll set a color for your sky. Start with the color wheel, which shade you want, and then fade it up or down. Light's usually better for sky, light colors. Click OK. Click OK. That color will not show up yet. You won't see it till we render a final video. Now we're going to do some work on the timeline at the bottom of the screen there. The timeline's that ruler you see at the bottom. It measures out frames. And so first we need to see some things we don't normally see when we're just looking at it. We need to open up the timeline. And we do that by clicking the plus sign next to the word Scene 01. And then we're going to open up the world. That sounds impressive, doesn't it? Click the plus sign next to World. And then there's a little scroll bar. Drag that scroll bar all the way down. You should see Object 01. If your train is still selected, that text will be in white. If it's gotten unselected somewhere along the way, then the text will not be in white. It will be in black. This is going to allow us to program our morph. And you'll hit the plus sign, again hit the plus sign, next to Object 01. And when you do that, you'll now see your morph. If you named it what I told you, it should say Toon Train. Or I think it's on my screen it says Toon Tra, because the rest of it got cut off. You may need to drag the scroll bar down before you see that Toon Train. And then double click on the very first frame, that's frame 0. That's the very beginning of that ruler. Make sure you're right next to the words Toon Train. If you double click to Object 01, you'll get the wrong set of controls. We need to be on the track for Toon Train. Double click that 0, that first frame, and a box will pop up, and this box is going to allow us to set up our morph. Now understand, morphs are binary, and that means they're on or they're off, and then the computer will fill in the in-between. So unlike real binary, there is an in-between. So that means we're using zeros and ones. That's the binary, means two numbers, 0 for off, 1 for on. So first we got to add a key. So click Add Key. We're going to type 24 under frame. You see the frame box? Hit Tab on your keyboard and it will move to frame 24. Click Add Key. Type 1 for the value at the top there, and then type 48 for frame in the frame box. Hit Tab, click the Add key for frame 48, click the Add key. Type 0 for the value. Type 72 in the frame box. Hit Tabs, we go to frame 72. At frame 72, we click Add key. We type 1 for the value. We type 96 for the frame box, and we hit Tab to go to frame 96. It's the value that is your morph, 1 for on and 0 for off. So at different spots on the timeline, we're turning it on and off. Now we're almost done. We got to go and add a key now that we're in frame 96. Yeah, okay, I got confused there. Sorry. Now that we're in frame 96, add key. The value will be 0. For the frame box, type 120 and press Tab. Now we add a key at 120. Add key. The value is going to be 1. And then in the frame box, 149. Press the Tab key. And then add key. The value is going to be 0. And that's the last one, and we'll click OK. So when you're entering those frame numbers, you need to press the Tab key to get it to move forward. If you just type the number, it won't have moved to that frame. You need that extra action of hitting the Tab key, and then it will go You can also use the plus and minus buttons next to it to go between frames. All right, now we've got the basic programming for the morph in there. So now's a good time to take a look and play it. Mine's going to show up on the screen here, but mine's going to move across the screen. Yours isn't going to do that because we haven't actually gone that far. Yours is just going to change shape up and down while it sits in one place. So you can either hit the play button, which sometimes will play it too fast. For a better speed, you can hold the right arrow on your keyboard and it'll scroll through. There mine goes. Yours won't be moving across the screen yet. It'll just move up and down. That was a finished one, and we're about to add those extra touches to it. That's going to make it move across the screen. So again, very cartoony look, but kind of fun. And once the slide changes here, we'll move on. Here we go. Now we need to turn on our animation key. Make sure that key is lit up in green so you know you're animating. Now notice for the morph programming we didn't have to have the key on, but now we do. So make sure that you are at 0 on the timeline. One way to do that is to click the rewind button as shown here. Get your move tool. And you want to move the train. By the way, if the train's not selected, use the select arrow to select it and then get the move tool. Move the train in top view to the far left of the screen. Make sure it's in top view that you move it. And then click at the last frame of the timeline. You can also use the fast forward button for that. Should be frame 149. Use the move tool again to move the train in top view to the far right of the screen. Now you can click the play button again or hold the left arrow on your keyboard and watch your train move across the screen as it changes shape. That's more like the train that I showed you in the last area. All right, let's finalize things here. Click View, then Camera. Click Render, Render Movie from the choices. Click the box with the ... next to File to open up your file system. Find the place on your computer where you want to place this and give it a name and then hit Save. Click OK and then click OK because another box will pop up after you click OK. And then you got to wait for the computer to process your video. It'll go through it frame by frame. Take a minute or so. And then once it's done, on the left panel, you can hit the close button, then hit File and Save so that your file gets saved. Now your morph train, your cartoon train is done. You can find that video wherever you saved it on your computer and watch it. In part 3, we're going to add bones to the train. I know that sounds weird, but bones are really just controllers to control animation. And those bones we're going to add are going to allow our wheels to spin. And then we're going to add in this morph sequence again. We'll have to add it to the figure. This one was done to the object, so we will have to do it again to do that. And then we'll add a sequence for the wheels to spin. And then in part 4, we'll make our final scene and put everything together, and we'll add train tracks and make a final video with ground and train tracks and trees and things. And then I might do a part 5. We'll see if we're still in quarantine at that point. But in part 5, we will learn how to add sound and do the basic video editing things that finalize the video completely. When the world finally does get back to normal, be sure to check out the Newport News Parks Recreation and Tourism instructional programs, and particularly the 3D computer animation classes. Until then, stay safe and stay healthy. Bye.